In the slow style framework that I teach, there are 4 skills that I believe everyone needs to develop if you want to create your own authentic dream home. The first 3 skills cover all the bases, including how to think like a designer, how to mix things together, how and when to employ foundational design concepts. But the fourth skill is a bit different. It's about making sure that A, you're living a richly textured life as much as possible, and B, bringing your exposure to the wider world back into the decor decisions you make throughout your home. I call the fourth skill Enrich, by which I mean following your curiosity to learn new things or learning about how things are made and educating yourself about the world of design and how it intersects with what's going on in society or in culture at large, and in your own thoughts about what you value and how you want to prioritize your life. Now, of course, you can do this via books and magazines from your favorite armchair, but you really do, at some point, need to get out and about. So go to a museum or watch a movie on the big screen, go for a picnic, go listen to live music, and ultimately, travel. Travel is the most obvious way to really immerse yourself in beautiful experiences that give you tons of design inspiration. I always travel with design in mind, and I recommend that for you as well. And it doesn't have to be big. It could be a day trip that's just a few hours away, or it could be halfway across the world. And what I mean by traveling with design in mind is weaving into your itinerary a beautifully decorated hotel or bar, or visiting an artist's studio, or touring a historic home. But traveling for the sole purpose of focusing on design, well, that is taking it a step further. Today, I'm talking with Bill Richards and Marla Mullen, co-chairs of Nantucket by Design. It's a 4-day event taking place in several beautiful spots throughout the island of Nantucket, with workshops and panel discussions and cocktail parties and boutiques opening their doors to show off what's new. I've been to and spoken at many design conferences, but they've all been about the business of design meant for people working in the profession. This is different. Yes, there will be a lot of designers there, but it's also for design enthusiasts. And by the way, if you love a good tassel trim or obsess about the slightest difference in hues at the paint store or can't stop thinking about that wallpaper that you saw in Veranda magazine, you, my friend, are a design enthusiast. I'm excited to be going for the first time myself, and I'll also be hosting a discussion that bridges the Nantucket by Design event with the Nantucket Antique Show, which starts just right then the day after. So before going, I wanted to talk with Bill and Marla about what to expect and to get their take on why going in person is so gratifying, why it's really good to get off Instagram and actually spend time with people in real life who are just as excited and obsessed with design as you are. Now, I realize that not everyone can make it to these kinds of events, but I wanted to put them on your radar because even if going this year isn't in the cards, maybe you'll work it into your plans for next year or find a similar event happening somewhere closer to where you live. Although there really aren't many of these that are meant for design enthusiasts. So yeah, I'm going to try to tempt you to come to this one. Okay, back to my guests. Marla Mullen is the principal designer for her firm, simply called Marla Design. And she works on projects throughout New England, but she focuses on Boston and Nantucket. Bill Richards is the life and business partner of Gary McBurney, and together they run McBurney Richards Design, dividing their time and their projects between New York, Palm Beach, and Nantucket. Once again, Bill and Marla are co-chairing Nantucket by Design 2025. Let's start talking with them. Marla Mullen and Bill Richards, welcome to the Slow Style Home podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us
for
on.
having us.
Yeah. Marla and Bill, before we get into the sneak peek, I have a question for each of you about your own personal approaches to design, either for your own homes or for clients. And Marla, I'll start with you. I've read an article you wrote for Boston Magazine, and I don't know how long ago this was, But we were designing a home for a client and she was walking through the rooms, wear the rooms, like put them on. I thought that was so wonderful. And then you said something about how you love assembling spaces like you would an outfit so that you would not just want to sit in a room, but you wanted to be in it. And I think that sense of inhabiting inhabiting a space and really experiencing it, that really struck a chord with me. So I was wondering if you could just paint a little picture for us of what you mean by that.
Yes. She turned to me and said, just exactly what you're saying, which is, I just want to wear all of these rooms. And that, like you were struck by what I said, that struck me. And it was actually a pretty pivotal moment for me in my
Okay.
business and in my career, because I don't think that I had realized at that point that was exactly what I was doing, that I was
Ah,
assembling the rooms such that I would want to wear it. And when you start to look at the house like that, it helps direct exactly how you're going to design the space. When I think of a project, I don't necessarily just start with a paint chip. A lot of
right.
times I'm starting with more of a thought process. It's really an expression. And so much
Mhm.
of fashion is an expression, not just of the individual, but about what might be going on in the world and how we're choosing to live at that moment in time. And so when I'm approaching a room, I really am pulling things together like I might an outfit.
Yeah.
And how that might make my client feel or how they want to feel in that room.
It's a combination of how am I feeling about myself and how do I want to present myself
Yep.
and which part of myself do I want to step into? And I feel if you apply that to a room, I don't mean to be too literal, but I think maybe some of your rooms are like the quintessential little black dress. And then
Right.
other rooms are the I am celebrating my 50th birthday and I'm going
Right.
all out. Or, yeah. And I think that
Right.
is,
Or the sweatpant rooms. We have those rooms that are meant to be really casual, and we're
yeah,
choosing materials that are supposed to reflect that and are supposed to make the people that are in that room feel that way. I think when I'm going through a room, is very much how I'm approaching it. You gotta start with certain elements and then
Mhm.
you accessorize at the end.
Bill, we're talking with Marla about how we want to feel and what we want to experience. And I think another big consideration to make when one is putting together a home is the sense of place. And I read this really beautiful post you put on Instagram about your dad who has passed away. And you and your brother took him on a trip to Paris. He had never been to France before. And you took him to the quintessential Paris nightclub. And you were just immersed in that. And I
It's
feel
very
like,
nice. You're telling the stories, give me chills.
oh
Oh,
gosh.
me
And I'm
too.
very sorry. I know. I'm so glad you got to have that trip. But
Yes, so am I.
yeah, those experiences, those feelings, they're so heightened and they're so important. And that is what we want to bring into our homes. Sometimes in big ways, sometimes they're just underneath the foundation of how someone's feeling. But surely you have a lot of that sense of place in some of the locations you primarily work, namely Palm Beach, where you are right now, and Nantucket. What is it about Nantucket? How do I know I'm in a Nantucket home or a Nantucket space? What are some of the things that you want to see?
It's really
Okay.
being respectful of the area and getting a sense of what's actually happening in that area, especially from an architectural
Yeah.
standpoint. So if you're going to do a build up or a remodel, let's be respectful of what's going on in the way that you're understanding what you're doing. So the outside of the
Right.
envelope, we can work there. Then on the inside, as far as a sense of place, yeah, before I get into tactile things, a sense of color. If you've chosen to be in a place like that, there's something about the place when you stand outside that makes you feel special.
Mm.
So we like to take that and bring it in. And the color palette doesn't have to exactly match the
Mhm.
outside, but there's elements of it that come in, and the hues may be different, or you may pair it with something different, or however you might do it. But we want to bring that same feeling into the indoors of the home. I think Marla will share one of my frustrations. There was a period where a lot of new builds going on, and people weren't necessarily paying attention. I won't say being
Yeah.
respectful because I don't think they were intentionally being disrespectful, but it was more of an uneducated approach where they were just throwing up houses that could have been anywhere.
Right.
They were very generic looking, And then if you saw the interiors, there was nothing that informed you that you were in one of the most special places in the world. So those kind of things can be dioramas, sailors' valentines. It can be blankets hand woven at Nantucket looms. It can be, we have lots of local artists. There's lots of vintage art that's available. It's looking at all those things and deciding what story you want to tell in your house and how you want to use those things.
Yeah.
It's the books. Typically, I like
Yeah.
to make sure that in all the guest rooms, there might be the fashion magazine, there might be a design magazine, but there's always a little book that tells you a little bit about Nantucket. So,
Yes.
so somebody's informed.
The birds of Nantucket or the native plants and the
There's one about
growing
the
season.
birds of Nantucket.
There is.
Yeah, I think that, and especially as a guest, that is exactly what you want to flip through before you go to bed at night if you're staying over. Yeah, I think that sense of place is so important, and I'm glad you brought up that it's not that you're copying the color palette exactly. It's a feeling. It's you're riffing on the hues, or maybe you have a slash of this crazy bright orange just because you happen to see it in the sunset one night, and it stands out.
You'll always find orange in my house.
Yeah,
That's one
but
of our colors.
yeah, and it's a great it is, and it is directly from Mother Nature.
Well, our latest home in Nantucket, it is a great example of what you're talking about. We bought a building that we repurposed. It had been storage for boats.
Okay.
And along the way, someone had added some sleeping wings. It was very rustic. It looked like it should be in Montana or
Oh,
upstate New Hampshire or something. It
okay.
didn't have anything to do with Nantucket.
Huh.
We neutered some of the wood. We used some white paint. We sheathed the stone fireplace in shiplap. And then for as much as I wanted to give it a sense of place with the Nantucket artifacts, I didn't want to look like a museum. And I didn't want to take away, to Marla's point, the sense you can get in a room where you feel like you can sink in the sofa and I don't have
You
to
don't
worry
wanna
about it.
feel like you're in the museum.
So,
Want
yeah,
it to
so
be part of the emotion you're feeling, but not stiff.
Not
or
just an
you're
observer watching
not
it,
a
but
non-touch.
yeah.
So I have this old Haris rug carpet that I bought at auction that we had restored, but we threw contemporary line furniture in
Right.
blue on
Love
top of it. And it just makes for a comfortable feeling, but you know who you are.
Yes, yes. That I think that's the goal, and that mix of old and new, and repurposing a piece to have a different. I have an old children's desk in my, or like teenager desk in my dining room. That's where my cloth napkins go. There's no chair there. It's not a desk, but
I have an old partner's desk as my nightstand
yes,
in my
exactly,
bedroom.
exactly. It tells our stories
I
for
know, I
sure.
have an old wash stand as my bedside table.
Oh,
It's a flip top that used to hold
Yeah.
this.
yes, I love it. I love it. Okay, continuing on our conversation about Nantucket. I would like to talk about this event. What do we expect? What happens during it?
When Marla and I took over, instead of it being basically supported by philanthropy, it went to primarily commercial sponsorship.
Okay.
So when the ball was first tossed to Marla and I that way, it's, oh my God, we got to raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it also created an opportunity that hadn't previously existed because the approach was different. If I'm going to a corporate sponsor, it's like, how am I going to make this work for you? How is this going to
How
help
can we
you
get creative?
in your marketing department bring some
Right.
income into your operation? So instead of looking at the back of everybody's heads during the panel, everybody wanted everybody to turn around and have a drink and shake hands and let's
Yes.
talk about what you're doing, I'm doing, what we can do together, that kind of thing. And I
Yep.
think that's where the magic happened last year.
Mm.
Which
Panels were
became
great
more
during the day,
experiential.
lots of education, but the
Mhm.
evening events and the other times when people got to meet and talk and connect names and faces. I follow you on Instagram. I love this. Tell me more about that. That's when it became something special.
Agree. I think it became more experiential. I think that by involving some of the sponsors in the creative side of it, we were able to then parlay that into more exciting panels and exhibitions and dinners and cocktail parties, and everybody felt like there was a better way to interpret each one of these
Yes.
vendors and each one of these panels and the speakers, and it allowed us
Right.
just to get creative.
Right.
And the event itself is to benefit the Nantucket Historical Association.
I would call this event perfect for a design enthusiast.
Correct. It's
Very
meant for
much.
both, right?
Yeah.
So it's meant, I would say that if you look at the type of people that are actually coming to our event, it's a mix.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have just as many design enthusiasts that are interested in the facet and the umbrella of design, and we like to mix in different people. so that it doesn't feel like it's only for an interior designer. It's not. It actually was built for the enthusiast.
I love
Believe it
that.
or
I
not.
love that.
And that takes the form of cocktail parties. We have one sponsor who brings up a Hinckley and takes people out on boat rides on the Hinckley so they can interact in a more intimate way. There are dinner parties in the evenings. It's a
People
lot of
pop up
fun.
at local stores just to be very local and community driven, and we'll do little events during the day.
There was lunches. There was
Right.
the Gournay at one point was there and had a little painting class. It's been fun stuff.
Yeah. The NHA runs a lot of classes for basket weaving and all sorts of things. And so a lot of that is incorporated during the week. So you can take these different classes and learn these
Love
different
that.
things.
The projects are geared to be short term. The little Nantucket woven bracelets that you see,
Yeah.
those can be made in a couple of hours, but you can
Right.
take a class and you leave with something that you made that's unique to Nantucket. And people were thrilled with that kind of thing.
Of course, this is the reason I'm excited about it is that this is exactly what I talk about on the show when I say you've got to get out and experience the world so that you have something to bring home. If you're just in your own little bubble and you're trying to get all of your ideas just from Pantone's color of the year, and not knocking Pantone, if that's your one thing, that's your source of inspiration, then you're missing out. And so immersing yourself in 4 days of design, I think it's like heaven for anybody who loves this stuff. So let's get into the details a little bit. When is it? How long? How do people sign up to it? And then we'll go back and talk a little bit more about the design itself.
Okay, the event this year runs July 14th to 17th. Tickets become available today. We're really excited about that.
One of the most important things that we haven't said yet is that our theme this year is interwoven.
The interwoven theme came from the NHA exhibit, which is examining textile and fashion artifacts from Nantucket from the last 150 years. It's really cool stuff because people think of Nantucket and you think just about whales. The people were off doing whales. There was all kinds of other stuff happening on the island. At one
Right.
point, they were planting mulberry trees to grow silk. There
Oh
were
my gosh.
sheep farms to get wool. There's
Yeah.
all these other interesting stories that play out in this exhibit.
Yes.
So we wanted a theme that sort of worked with that. So we came up with interwoven. It was a lot of fun putting this together.
I bet. And that idea of being interwoven, that's to get really metaphorical about it, that is what we're trying to do in our homes, right? We're trying to figure out all the disparate pieces of our lives, how we weave them in together to tell a visual story in our homes. Do you want to say anything more about how that theme is playing out through some of these panels?
We have a panel on island legacy that's just telling the stories of like how history basically is interwoven into tomorrow, how you take history and bring it into the modern day world when you're doing design.
Love it. Yeah.
On that tale of particular interest, we have a Boston-based designer, a woman named Kristen Patton, who bought a old sea captain's house. So she's a perfect example of someone who's taken a historical property and worked it into contemporary living. So there'll be images of that project featured, and that'll be part of the discussion.
We have a really fun one on fashion, which I think people will be
Okay.
interested in, called Crossroads: Global Inspiration Meets Fashion and Design. And we are really excited to have JJ Martin from La Double J, who's flying all the way in from Milan, and Veronica Beard and Sylvia Firmanovich from Sylvia Firmanovich, who's known for her incredible marquetry work and jewelry. So we're really excited, and that's being moderated by El Decor, and we're just thrilled.
Then we're supported this year by the Design Leadership Network, a major affiliation group, which we're thrilled about. Then our lunch this year, we have Patrick Frey coming in from Pierre Frey to be interviewed by Stacy Bucas. The other thing too, one of the issues with coming to Nantucket by design, we're 30 miles out at sea. You get there by a ferry at Cape Air. JetBlue has great flights from New York, but then it's where you stay. To the extent people need help finding some place to stay, Stacy Stewart at the NHA does have some discounted rates available for attendees.
Great.
So if you give her a shout and see what's available for you.
What's really exciting this year is that Nantucket by Design will now back up to the Nantucket Antique Show.
The three of us are going to regroup in Nantucket at the Antique Show, and we'll give you a preview. We'll allow you to meet a few of the dealers, and perhaps they'll tell us about a few of the interesting objects.
Yes, I'm so excited about that and very, very happy to be involved with that. The day after Nantucket by Design, the antique show starts. And so in that little
Yes.
period of time, the three of us are going to talk about what just happened at the design show, what we're looking forward to regarding antiques. And I think I will be doing a book signing. So
Oh,
that's
I like
exciting.
that.
Yes. Okay. I think we've got the details out there. I would love to hear from you, each of you. What is one thing that you hope people take away from this? What do you really want the outcome to be for someone who is coming to the show?
I personally want people to walk away feeling and remembering like they were not just at an event, but that they were immersed in the island and the island's history. We might be this little island 30 miles out to sea, but we've been connected to the mainland and to the world for thousands of years. And thanks to an organization like the Nantucket Historical Association, who diligently works to keep those properties and those stories alive and all of our fingertips. I want that to be the takeaway.
Marla and I are both on the board of the NHA, so I'm going to echo her sentiments exactly. And we both share a love of the history for the island. We want people to walk away with a greater, we're not just a whaling town, an old whaling town.
Right.
There's far richer history to be learned.
And that, to me, is the way to travel. It is to immerse yourself, to
Right.
really understand the fabric of a place. No pun intended, although it's pretty good with the interwoven.
How interwoven we all are.
Yeah. But really to walk away absorbing the place you've been. And the way to do that is this kind of immersive experience. So if you are serious about getting tickets, they go fast. So you can buy individual tickets to individual events. And if you don't get it right away, refresh it so that the ticket shows that it's available. Like they really do go. So
Yeah, they do go fast.
thanks so much.
Thank you for having
you,
us.
Sandra.
This has been amazing.